Hello and welcome. So in this video, I'm going to be walking through how a student can create a free Azure account. That's Microsoft's online platform, their cloud-based platform, which for a student can then come with some free credits. And they also offer a whole bunch of tools with just free access indefinitely for folks who are on this student account. Now, there's a ton of tools that Azure provides. Frankly, this could be a million-hour video if I went through all that, so I'm not going to be doing that. Instead, I'm going to be diving into specifically how to use Azure DevOps, which is one of the many tools that they offer. And their DevOps system is really sort of like a software development system. So it allows you to create a project and add team to that project, and you can manage it. It's sort of like a project management tool combined with a code repository. And it has a bunch of other tools that are built into it. So we're going to dive into that a little bit today. I'm mostly putting this video together for folks who are interested in using this for doing their game development. And the main reason for that is because if you were to use what pretty much most people use, most students use for doing game dev, as far as code goes, they would use GitHub, which is by and large the largest and most popular code repository system in the world. But GitHub has limitations on the size of the files that you can submit there as part of their free accounts. And if you're making a video game, if you're making something with Unreal, Unity, Godot, whatever, the chances are you're going to have a lot of large asset files that need to also be version controlled. And you can go into a whole thing about how to do that and whatnot, but the most commonplace way to do that if you're going to use Git, which is the most common version control system, is to use a system called Git LFS, which is for large file system. And GitHub supports that, but unfortunately, because of their size limitations, it ends up getting to a point where you're probably going to have to end up paying them money. And if you're a student, you probably don't have a lot of money. So this is why I'm walking through this video today. It's really going to be aimed at folks who are in school, have access to a school email account, and then that will allow you to follow along with my steps. You'll create the Azure account for a student. It gives you a bunch of free access, and the Azure DevOps system will allow you to have a code base that has, as far as I can tell, unlimited sized repo. So you can check in files that have LFS. It has LFS already turned on and built into it, and you can just hit the ground running with the team and doing your dev. So I think that's really awesome. But it is a little bit of a chore to get this set up, which is why I'm making the video. So let's go ahead and just jump right in. And the first thing we're going to do is go up here and we're going to search for Azure for Students. Okay. And if you just type that in there, the very first thing you're going to get is apparently their official site, which I'm going to skip right past. I'm going to go to Azure for Students free account credit. Boom, you go right there. And it should take you to this page. And I'm not going to dive into all of the eligibility requirements. The end result is that you just need to be, I think, over 18 and be in a school. So it's mostly geared at college-age students. If you are in that camp, that means you're attending a college of some sort. That means they probably have provided you a college email address. And so you can use that email address to sign into this account. So you're going to click this Start Free button. All right, and then it's going to ask you to sign in. Now, the trick here is that you're going to need to put in your student email account right here. And as long as that is a valid account, it's going to then probably forward you over to your school's SSO system, their single sign-on system. Or if not, then maybe your school uses like the built-in one with Microsoft. I can't really predict what that's going to do. At the school I teach at, they do. And if you are going there, you'll just sign in like you normally do, and then it'll take you over to another page. And I have already done this, and I don't want to like try to do it again through my system here. So instead, I'm just going to show you what those look like. So just give me 1 second here. I'll open this up. Okay. So the very first page, after you have done that and you've signed in, the very first thing it's going to try to do is verify your academic system. So you're going to see a page that looks just like this. And it should automatically populate with your first name and your last name, but you're going to want to and your email address. But you're just going to want to head and type in your school name here and your birth date. They do require both of these fields, and your country obviously. And then you're going to get to solve the little puzzle to make sure that you're not a robot. That's loads of fun. All right, and then after you've done that, I think that's actually everything you have to do on that page. And then you're going to go a little further, and I think what that does is it creates a Microsoft account for your student account. They kind of link those two together to become an actual Microsoft account. After that, then it's going to create your Azure account, which I know those are two different things. I know it seems really confusing. That's why I'm making this video. So after that, then it's going to start asking you to create an Azure profile, and you're going to get a page that looks like this, right? And this page is going to ask you some kind of redundant information about your first name, your last name. It's because it's a completely separate account. You can just fill it out. Again, it probably is pre-filled out with your first name and your last name. You can put your email address. They want you to put your email address in here, and you got to add a phone number, and you got to add your address in here. So you got to fill out all this stuff. This is actually just the first half of that profile page, and then I think they have a second half right here, and there's that. So you'll get the city, the state, the zip, and then you're going to want to check these boxes. You only need to check the second box if you actually want to get their marketing material, which I usually don't. But you do have to check this box to basically say that yes, I am the student who has this account and I'm good to do this. After you do those things, you're going to click the sign up button. It's going to spin around for a little while, and then eventually you're going to land on the page you want to land on, and that's going to be basically the portal page for Azure. And so that page should probably be something along the lines of portal.azure.com. And see, again, yeah, it's expecting me to go ahead and just log in with mine. So I'm going to go ahead and just do that really quick. Okay, so then once you are logged in, this is the first page you should start with. You can say just get started right here. How do you plan to use it? I'm basically just going to skip all this, but I mean, you could go through it. It's telling you how you can plan to use Azure. It's great. Okay, but now you're in here and you should already have your Azure account set up with, I believe, $100 credit that's just started. So you can actually use that $100 towards some of their paid services if you want. But if you want to let this service run for the full year without getting cut off, you got to make sure you don't spend all of it, because as soon as you spend all of that $100, then they're going to expect you to start using your own money to continue to use those services. If you only use the free services, then you'll never use that credit. And then this page can be a little overwhelming, so I'm not going to spend time distinguishing between the free services and the not free services. They actually have a way to do that, and we might actually see it here in a second. But the very important thing that we're going to do is we're going to find the Azure DevOps system. More services is what we're going to end up going to here. All right, and then this is where it's actually listing out literally every service that Azure provides, and as you can tell, it is a very long list. This can be extremely overwhelming if you don't understand what this is for. So that's why this video is being made, because this is kind of way over the top. Also, hopefully you're understanding now why I'm not even going to attempt to go through all of this. That's just too much. Instead, we're going to go straight over here to DevOps, and one of the ones that we want to do here is Azure DevOps Organization. So I'm pretty sure that's the one I want. It's this one right here, okay? And this is going to allow us to create our own DevOps organization. So I'm going to click on that. So you're going to click on this My Azure DevOps Organizations. Okay, so now it's going to try to actually create the DevOps organization that is going to be tied to our account specifically. So every time that you use one of their tools, they kind of spin up a little section just for that tool. And then you actually almost have to create a separate little account just for that tool within your Azure account. I know that might sound a little ridiculous, but that kind of seems like how they're doing it. So this is going to show up here. You can just leave this the way it is. It'll probably be exactly what you want, although you're welcome to change the name or the email address, I suppose, but I would just leave it the same. And then we're going to hit continue. Okay, and then once you do that, you're going to land here. And now we are in the Get Started with Azure DevOps. This is just telling you the DevOps account that they have created for you. And now you can create a new organization. So the way that DevOps is set up is that you can literally create multiple, what they consider to be organizations. Each organization can have however many projects you want inside of them. I'm going to create literally one organization, and then that's what I'm going to build all of my projects inside of. So let's do that. Create an organization, and then it's going to prompt you and say, hey, are you sure you want to do this? Sure do. I would like information, tips, and others about DevOps. Again, this is if you want the marketing material. I don't, so I'm going to uncheck that. All right, and now it's going to ask you what you want to call your organization. So this is going to be a unique URL that's going to identify your specific organization that you're about to do. So I'm just going to name this something kind of ridiculous like Azure Testing Org. And then I'm going to say I'm in the US, and we're going to click next. Oh, and somebody has already done this, so maybe I'll do testing org 1. Hey, there we go. And it's going to take a second for it to now build the organization and all the resources that are going to be associated with that. Okay, so now that we have an organization, this page is now asking you, hey, you want to create a project? And like I was saying before, within an organization, you can have several projects. So the important thing to notice here over on the left, it has the name of the organization that I just created. You can create a whole another one here if you want to click on that button. The other thing that I find to be slightly annoying is how to find the settings for your organization. It's way down here in the bottom left. This is organization settings. So if you click on that, that will take you to the page that's let you kind of manage the permissions and all the stuff associated with your organization. There's actually a lot of stuff you can do here. And I'm going to circle back to this, but I just wanted you to know about this right up front, that like there is a way for you to kind of manage a bunch of the settings and the permissions and indeed the billing associated with this. Not that you really should have any, but there's a lot of stuff that goes on here. Also, when you go into one of these sections, it creates this little breadcrumb tree up at the top here. So you can always just go right back to your organization by clicking all the way to the left here. And that takes me straight back to this. Okay. Now the very first thing it wants me to do is create a project. So let's assume that I'm going to make a website. I'm going to probably just make a really silly website here in a minute. And let's say I was going to work on a team with that to build that website. So I might have a project that is devoted to all of the work involved in building that website. So I might say something like my silly website, right? Something like that. You might want to add a little description in there, a silly website. There we go. You have the choice between making this a public or private. In fact, I think actually on the student account, everything is private. So don't have to make any decisions there. This is just automatically selected for you. In the advanced section, you can choose what kind of version control you want. Like I said before, if you're a student, and frankly, I think this is just wise for anybody who's kind of just starting off with this kind of workflow, Git is by far the most popular version control system in the world. So this is probably the one you want. And I think that's literally the only one they even give you options to. But if you were going to use different version controls, I think Azure does DevOps does support them, but it might be for only one of their paid accounts. I'm not 100% sure about that. And then if you want, you can add like what kind of work items you're going to be creating here. And this is really more based on the kind of methodology you're going to use. I'm not going to jump into this too much. I'm just going to pick the basic one. You're welcome to investigate that more on your own. And you're going to hit create project. Okay, so now we have created our project within our organization. Again, you can go up to the top and see here's the organization, here's the project, and here's sort of the tab that I'm in right now on that project. So I'm in the overview section, if you want to call it that. And then within the overview section, there's these three subsections. The one I'm on right now is the summary section. It really is exactly what it sounds like. It's a summary of everything going on in your project. Right now, not a whole lot since I just created it. They have a whole bunch of other things that are in here. Like I said, you can actually do a whole lot of stuff in here with test plans and pipelines and boards and all that good stuff. A lot of the board stuff is sort of project management. We're going to be spending a little bit of our time in repos. This is basically just a Git repository system. So you can have a full Git repo that is associated with this specific project. Right? So if you ever want to make a different repo, you could create a different project and have a whole new set of repos. Right? So I think that's a pretty neat feature, and as far as I can tell, this is more or less unlimited. I don't think that they have a lot of hard restrictions on this. The other thing I'm going to mention really quick is, again, how to get to the settings. It is down in the bottom left, way down here, sneaky. They don't seem to want you to know that. You click down here and go to project settings, right? And again, now you have settings that are exclusive to this specific project, right? Includes who you are, all of the things that you're going to be taking advantage of in this project. So again, if I'm not going to use the artifacts and I'm not going to use test plans or pipelines or whatever, I could just get rid of them. So I'm going to get rid of artifacts. I'm going to get rid of the test plans. Not that these are bad, but I just don't want them in there right now because I'm not going to use them. Right? And I'll leave the boards and the repos there. That's fine. It does tell you what your project limits are, and so I guess I shouldn't have said that there were no limits. But the limits are so big, in my opinion, they might as well not be there. So if you have a team of 5,000 or more than 5,000 people, I guess you won't be able to use this. Dashboards, they have 500 dashboards. You have, what is this, like 10,000 iterations. They're pretty generous, is what I'm trying to say. You're probably not going to run up against this if you're doing like a student-based project. And then you could also give a description to your project as opposed to just the whole organization. I'm sorry, I'll even do that. Say my silly website project description. There you go. You can hit save. All right, that updated it. All right. So if you ever want to do that, this is how you do things related to the project. Again, if I just want to get back to my project, I'm just going to click right here, and we land right back here again. Okay. All right. So, very first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and create a repo. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to go over here and create the repo right here. Right, and you're going to get to this button. There's nothing in our repository, so it's sitting here just telling you how to access your repository. You have a few different ways you can do it. You can use HTTPS or SSH. I'm just going to use HTTPS because that's the first one selected. You are more than welcome to use SSH. That would just require you to gen an SSH key and then set it up on your repo so that you could authenticate that way. But if you don't do that, then you're going to use this, and you're probably eventually going to have to click this Generate Get Credentials. So to kind of help get this going, I'm going to go ahead and create a project and get it ready to go with Git. Right. So when I can initialize the main branch with a README, so I could, if I wanted, I could actually create the repo here first, and then I could just clone that and then do the work on my computer, or I could do the work on my computer and try to push it up and make it the first repo. Honestly, that's sort of up to you how you want to do it. Probably the easiest is literally just to build it here and then just continue to do that work, clone it onto your computer, and then do the work locally and then just push it up when you're done. So here's what we're going to do. I think that's what I'll do since it's super easy. Yeah, see, this is telling you if you already have a repo, then this is how they're saying you could push it up. But I'm just going to go ahead and just let it build one. So I'm going to build one. It's going to start with a main branch and a little quick README. So we can go, and actually, for the folks who are interested in doing a game-based repository, you're obviously not going to want to version control literally everything in your project. That would be a whole bunch of stuff that doesn't need to be there. So they actually have a lot of presets here, which is pretty neat. I find this to be extremely cool. And you can go in here and you can just, like, I don't know, Unreal, right? There's an Unreal Engine one. And so this is already pre-configured to ignore the files that Unreal Engine produces that you don't need to have in version control. So, I mean, that's actually pretty neat. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. I'm going to say none. I'm not going to make anything nearly that cool. And we're going to say initialize. Okay, so all that did was it made the initial repo, and it put a README file in there, and the README file literally just has this information in it. Not a whole lot interesting going on there. If you're very familiar with GitHub, you should notice this looks a lot like how GitHub is set up. Just here's the list of your files, and then if you have something in Markdown, it'll show you right here, like a README. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and clone this repo onto my local computer. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm just going to hit clone. All right, and now it's going to tell me this is the path to the place I need to go. So now I'm going to go ahead and just go down to my local computer, and I'm going to clone it onto my computer. So let's do that. Now this is where I was going to put my cool website. I already had a folder sort of set up and devoted to it. So why don't we just do that? I'm going to go, actually, I'm going to direct this to go right here. So I think there's lots of ways you can use Git. Some people prefer to use a graphical user interface. Some people just do it from the command line. I'm sort of a command line kind of person, so I'm just going to do this that way. You will have to have Git installed on your computer. And so perhaps this is actually a worthwhile thing for me to mention. I will, I guess, shamelessly promote one of the tools that I like to use nowadays. So if you go over here to go to scoop.sh, Scoop is a package management system for Windows. I'm obviously doing all of this on Windows. If you're using a Mac or something else, then you can totally use Azure DevOps. It's fine. You probably already have your own package manager. You don't need this. But I find this to be extremely helpful for doing lots of tools, installing especially command line tools on Windows without having to like go through the hassle of downloading a bunch of stuff. They have an extremely large library. You could do Git for Windows here, right? And they almost certainly will have it. Hey, look at that. Just a fast and friendly Git client for Mac and Windows. Look at that. Beautiful. There's a Git fork. I could just probably just typed in Git and probably got a whole bunch of other ones, So anything you want, you can have. So all you end up having to do to get all this to work is you literally just go and run these 2 lines of code in PowerShell, and then it'll install it on your machine. Once you have it installed, I'll show you right now how I have it set up. Whoops. So we'll do this. We'll go cd mat, right? And then we can just do scoop, and then I'll just say list, right? And this will just tell me everything that I've installed using Scoop, right? And one of the things I've installed is Git, so that's pretty neat. And so if I ever wanted to update Git, for instance, I could say Scoop update Git, and it'll go and check and say, hey, you already got the latest version, you're good. You can update, you can also search the same way you do here from the command line. Really nice. So anyways, that's how I installed Git on this computer. Is I literally just did scoop install Git, and it just put it on there, and it was all ready to go. Put it into the path. Everything was great. So anyways, that's how I got Git on my machine. You can do it as many different ways as you want, but I figured I'd do a little shameless plug here. All right, let's go back over to here and let's get to cloning. So first thing I gotta do is I get to that spot on my desktop. Cool. Okay, now that we're here on my cool website, we can actually do the clone. So I'm just gonna do git clone, right? And then I'm going to copy this location from my clone spot here, and I'm just gonna put that right there. Okay. So now it knows. This is how it knows exactly where to go to get to that specific repo. Now it's gonna try to get me in, but my Git client on my local machine is not authenticated into this. So if you're using the Git client that you get from Scoop, it actually has this little credential helper selector show up, and then it's actually listing you how you want to get the credentials it's looking for. For this, I've noticed the best way to do this is just to use the manager, which is the one that's already pre-selected. In some other situations, you might want to use the Windows Credential Manager if you already had it in there, or you could just say no helper at all. That will depend on what you're trying to authenticate into. For Azure DevOps, I've noticed the manager is kind of just nice. So I'm going to hit select, and it's going to actually have me pick the one that I want to use to get in, right? And so I'm going to go ahead and log in using the credentials that I created for this account. So this is actually going to be my college email account. It's basically me authenticating into Microsoft. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm just going to go ahead and put in my credentials here. Okay, so it accepted my credentials, and now it's saying it's cloning. However, the very next thing it's going to do is actually have this window pop up again. So I'm going to have to select again. Now I'm pretty sure what this is going to ask me to do now is, yeah, it's going to use the credentials it already found, and now it's just unpacking it, and boom, there it goes. Okay, so it actually put this in here. I will point this out. It's not happening right now because this is a brand new repo. If you're using a project that uses LFS, so if you're using a game project that's using LFS, the way LFS works is it's actually creating a separate repo to hold all of your large files. So what I've noticed is if you're using a project that's set up that way, when you clone it, it might actually need you to authenticate into it twice. And that's expected behavior. It might not seem obvious why you're having to do that, but that's the reason. All right, so just keep that in mind. If it happens twice and you're using LFS, that's probably why. I'm not right now. This is literally an empty project, which is why it just kind of wham bam did it. All right, so there we go. So now I've cloned that project onto my local computer. So now I can go over here. If I go in here now, you can see here's my silly website, and here's the site where it has all the stuff. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go in here, and I'm going to go ahead and open up VS Code. Okay, and you can see that here's my VS Code. You could also tell that it probably is going to automatically know whether or not we have, yeah, see it has a little source code. So it already has the Git is already kind of set up to do that, which is cool. So now I'm going to go ahead and make a very simple website. What am I calling this? Silly my site, I guess. Let's go with that. My site HTM. And because I'm feeling kind of like in a silly mood, let's just let AI do it for me. I'm not really hell bent on doing this myself. So I'm just going to go ahead and use Copilot, and I'm going to let Copilot build me this website. So there we go. So I'm just show me how HTML canvas could work. That's pretty neat, right? I'm going to click that. It's going to generate something. That's cool. It made a website. Look at that. It's still doing it. Okay. I have no idea what it's going to make, but I'm hoping it's done now. Yeah, it's done. Okay, great. So then I'm just going to go ahead and apply that to the editor. Great. Okay, I'm sure it's lovely. I'm going to accept those changes. All right, cool. Now I have something. And I guess we could test this out really quick by, I wonder if I can just preview it in here. Sometimes they'll let me do that. No, it's fine. If not, I can just come over here, go in here, and let's just run it right here and see what happens. And hey, looky there. Here's an interesting website that says Hello Canvas and has some stuff on there. That looks really lovely. It's clearly using a canvas. All right, great. So there's my cool website. It's quite silly, but it is effective. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close that guy down now. So we have it. And now as you can see here, it's already picking it up in our local Git that this is a new file. So I'm going to click on this. I'm going to say, built the site. Confirm, right? Yes, I definitely want to stage it and commit it at the same time. Yes, right? So now that, and I haven't configured the username for SA. So let's open that up, I guess, and do that. I was bad on my part. I haven't configured username and user email in Git yet. Let's see here. Can I just do this? Yeah, so if I want to do that, I'm pretty sure I just need to go over here, right? And then I just want to go do something like, I think it's like git config. I'll probably just make it a global setting, global user.name, and I'll say my name is Matt. That should be good. And then we'll do git config global. Oh, I probably should spell that right. User.email, and then I'll have the email here. Sounds good. I'm probably going to have to re-change that since that's not really a thing. There we go. Okay, so that probably should have fixed that up. Let's go back over to here now. And oops. And we're going to go ahead and commit it. And now it's a happy camper. We're going to sync the changes. We'll push. That's okay. I would love to push these changes up. And now we're going to get the credential thing again where it's saying, hey, you have to authenticate in. So again, it's giving me this little window. I'm going to say, sure, do it. I'm expecting the little window thing to pop up again. Great. Let's go ahead and log in with our thing again. Okay, it did it. And now I'm going to hit select again so it'll actually do it. Do it one more time. Select. Okay, and now it's going to ask me to do the credential manager again. I'm sure there's probably some way to make this happen without having to resubmit it over and over again. That part I really just don't know. To periodically run git fetch, this is up to you if you want it to do that. Ask me later. Right? And so there, I have now committed it and I have put it into the repo. So if I go back over to the repo, my assumption is that I am going to see it here. So if I refresh, there is my site.htm, right? And it has been submitted by Matt. So everything's great. If I go and I want to have somebody else grab it now, that's sort of the next step. And the last thing I'm really going to walk through in this video is, now let's say you wanted to work on a team. This Azure DevOps system really is meant for a team project. That's why they call it a project. That's why they have boards. It's so that you can add, to-do items for other folks and keep track of who's working on what. So if you weren't doing that, I almost would think that this is almost kind of silly. You could just do everything on your local computer. But if you're working in a team, you're going to need a place to hold all this information, and that's what this is really great at. But it means you need to be able to add folks to the team. And so this is where you have to know a little bit more. And earlier when I was talking about these project settings things hidden down here in the bottom left, this is sort of where we're going to start referencing that now. So in my experience, because I created my own organization, we'll go back to this here. So now we're on my Azure Testing Org 1, right? That's the organization I created here. Right now, if I were to go into the organization settings, and I will go over here to users. Once you land on this page, this is where you're going to go ahead and add a user to your organization. So again, you're just going to get here and click this little add users button. You click here. Now this is where you're going to put the email address of the person or people you want to add. Now this is a good point for me to pause for a second and make sure that I'm being clear about this. Many colleges and schools have their own organization settings set for their organization. And if you were using your college's email address, and then when you authenticated in, it actually took you over to your college's like SSO landing page. That means you're basically authenticating in with that college's rules and limitations. And if that's the case, there's a good chance that they're going to limit the kind of users that you can add to projects that are associated with them. And so if it's students who you're going to be working with that are in the same, college or school as you, see if you can just look them up right here on your own. So in my case, I might try to just find myself. Yeah, and I could, right? So I can add myself directly in here. I don't even have to add an email account, right? It's just straight up that way, and it's nice. It's actually really super convenient because you can just add the other students into your project willy-nilly. If your college doesn't have that kind of SSO system set up and there isn't a way for you to just search for them in this little search bar, then you're going to need them to provide you a Microsoft account, email account that they have. Doesn't have to necessarily be their college email account. It could be anything, but it just needs to be something that's associated with Microsoft. That way they can kind of authenticate them when they try to get into the project. All right, so however you're doing that one's sort of dependent on the school you're in. My school, obviously, it's letting me just sort of reference it because I had to authenticate through their SSO. So in that case, great, but it's not always going to be that way. Okay, so with that in mind, you can pick the access level. Basic is probably the most basic one you can do. It's what I always use. And then this is where you can add that user to a specific project. So you know that the one project we've actually built is this My Silly website. It's the only one there. I strongly encourage you to just add users to the specific projects you want them to be in. If you don't do that, or if you click the Add All button, basically you're saying that this user can go anywhere in any project that you've ever done. Maybe that's what you want, but in my experience, that's not usually what you want. So I would say just pick the ones you want them to be a part of, and this will automatically add them into that specific project's user settings. All right. You're also probably going to want to have this box that's already checked for you that says send email invites. This will send them an email invite letting them know, hey, you've been added to this project team. So, and that kind of tells them how to go get access. So I'm going to go ahead and click add. And there it went. It successfully added the user to the account, or rather to the organization. Sorry. All right. So after you've done that, now we can go back over to the organization page. Right. And if you get back here, this is the one project I have. So if I go into here, I can click on that. And now you'll notice it over here in the members, you'll see two things pop up. Previously, it was just the one. It was just me, the person who owns the actual organization and the project. But now it's also added in the second account that has access. And that's because when you specify where you were going to add that user, it automatically put them in here. If you hadn't checked any boxes, they still wouldn't be here. You would have to manually go in, right? And so I can actually remove this person from that project. If I just now go into the project settings, not the organization, but the project settings, I can actually go down into teams. Here's the default sort of team group that they have here. And right now it has only the one person in it. It should have multiple people in it. Oh, I think it's in permissions. Contributors, I think is where it puts it. And then you can go to members, and there we both are. Okay, so it added this person as a contributor to the project, right? So that's how it was able to add them into the project. So it just automatically did that. If I wanted to, I could check this box and I could literally just remove them, and then they would no longer be a part of the project. They would still be a part of my organization. They just wouldn't be access to this project. So you do have ways to sort of manage that if you want. Okay, let's go back to this website. Okay, so now if I were to log in as that separate user, I can access the site. I can pull down the repository from there, and that person basically has the same level of access. Well, not the same level, but a large number of the access that the original owner has, because I gave them the basic stuff. So they could just go into repos. They would come in here. They could say clone. So they would probably on their machine, they would need to click the clone button. They'd grab this. They'd have to have Git on their machine. They could pull it down, make changes, and then update, sort of like I was doing here, right? Exactly the same thing. And that's how you can all do your team collaboration. So that's pretty much it. So that's pretty much everything I had here. I know this was probably a little longer than you were expecting. I know it was a little longer than I was expecting. But that's how you can set up Azure DevOps as a student. And all of what I was doing here was free. It costs no money at all, which I think is a huge benefit for students who are often on a tight budget. And this will let you do as much committing and as big of files as you need for your project. And you can also use the many other features that Azure gives you for managing the project. And this is something I haven't even gone into, but you can do things like these, yeah, like the work items and boards and backlogs and sprints and all this stuff. Very kind of high level project management stuff. Maybe I'll make a video about all this in the future, but for now, that is all I have. So thank you for watching and happy coding.